How bad has it been?
Well, the less said, the better. I think in the last 100 years, the industry never experienced such a decline in revenues, which almost went to 0% compared to last year. And of course, that's a consequence of an imposed lockdown. So if you're shut down and you're not allowed to operate the business, then the revenues see a dramatic fall. And all of us in our careers have at some point learned how to deal with minus 20, minus 30, minus 40, but how to deal with minus 80, minus 90% of the revenue was quite a challenge for, I think, the industry in general across the globe. But as you've been showing on your program, some economies where tourism is a key driver of the GDP, I think they suffered even more because of this COVID-19 situation.
But are you seeing a recovery? And if you are seeing a recovery, what parts of the whole industry are the ones which are rebounding best?
So let's look at some of the positives in the last few months. So the Q2 as to March as a financial year. So the Q2 was definitely 50% higher than the Q1 because we are coming from such a low base. The Q3 is showing similar trends, so we are moving in the right direction. This is mainly driven by the festive season, especially in India, which was able to induce some pent-up demand, which was really driven by domestic leisure travel and not corporate travel. And within the leisure, mainly holidays taken by driving to a destination or staycation within the same cities. And also during this season, we start what we call the wedding season in India. So small, intimate weddings started happening. Now on the negative side, there has been a complete demise of international travel as the borders are shut, which obviously leads to a very limited corporate business travel as well as meetings, incentives, conference and events. And of course, because of restricted numbers in some cities to 50 and in some to 100, the glamorous fairy tale weddings are not happening this year as they used to happen previously. So at the moment, that's the negative, but we are cautiously optimistic that in the next few months, we'll be getting back definitely the wedding business, and the corporate and business travel might take a bit longer.
Puneet, very quickly, many of these hotel groups have had to really think about other ways of generating revenue, thinking outside the box. What have you been seeing in that regard?
I think a lot of hotel groups, for example, went into home delivery of food. I think that was not done because the restaurants, especially in Asia, were always full. There was a waiting on most of the good restaurants. So that food was brought home. A lot of other services from laundry to, hampers and, the day-to-day needs, which were fulfilled by going to a hotel or to a salon, were actually brought to your home. And I think that's one of those things which really worked a bit for the industry. The second, the industry did a fantastic job in supplying meals to the migrant workers and supplying meals to the medical staff, hosting the medical staff. And in hindsight, some of the governments also decided to compensate the industry for it. So that helped in creating some revenue. And last not least, I think this has been a historic opportunity for the industry to review the cost in more detail than ever before. So I think as and when we come back, we would have a different cost base, both at a fixed cost level as well as at a variable cost level. And that's definitely, we have to say that COVID-19 made us realize how less can be more. And that's helped a lot.
Puneet, I want to ask you about the cost structure shortly, but let me just bring to our viewers' attention. It's Tom here in Beijing, by the way, Beijing, I should say. We've got a redhead crossing the terminal at Sinopharm, which is listed in Hong Kong. It's up more than 6% right now. It has submitted an application for a COVID-19 vaccine and its use in China. That is according to the Xinhua news agency. Again, Sinopharm stock rallying on the back of that news. Sinopharm submitting an application for COVID-19 vaccine use here in China. Puneet, you talked about the cost structure and how that will change on the back of the pandemic. What does that mean for jobs then in the sector? How many jobs were lost, and at what point do we get back to pre-pandemic levels, if indeed we do?
Yeah, I think there is a big difference there between the larger players and the smaller players. I think in the smaller players and in the unorganized sector, which is very big in India, I think a lot of jobs were lost, where a tourist would come in and use a traditional Indian rickshaw in the holy city of Benares, and if that tourist is not coming in, that rickshaw driver is not getting, his daily wage to the extent he used to get. So I think there has been a big impact on the jobs in the unorganized sector. In the organized sector, I would say the larger have done quite well. We, in our company, for example, have not laid off any permanent staff or have not taken on to any cuts. However, some companies like ours, which have a very large growth pipeline of hotels, have been able to redeploy staff. And we've also been able to redeploy executives in high growth industries within the Tata Group. So I think some of those creative ways of managing on that cost front when it comes to employees has worked quite well for us. We could always do better, but that's how the ethos of the group has been, and we are very proud to say that that's how we treat our people. And having said that, it is not just those costs. It is the cost of, too much of service sometimes in Asia. So when you move to touchless service, when you get more digitization in place, then there are many other things that you stop doing. And when you stop doing those things, they also help you reduce costs, and you're not doing it because you don't want to do it. Some of those are a part of the standard operating procedures as outlined by the Ministry of Health or the WHO. So I think all in all, the cost structures for almost the entire industry has worked quite well in the last 6, 7 months or 8 months, I would say now.
Puneet, I wanted to get your views on the vaccine. We just had this news out of China around Sinopharm applying for this application. When it comes to the vaccine, what are you putting in place in terms of plans to get your team and your group vaccinated? Have you started to think that through in terms of how you might put that plan into place?
I think as we speak now, those subjects are being discussed at the highest level in the government, at the center level, at the state level, and also at different groups, especially larger groups like Tata Group. And I think we're just like a week or 10 days or at least maybe 2 weeks ahead of the time. And then I think it'll be more appropriate to talk about the plans in a couple of weeks once we have that clarity followed from the highest level in the government and then trickling down to the state level and to the groups.